Okay, this is Ben, and this is my screenplay, and oh, I have something on my nose. Is that a cut? I have a cut on my nose. Look.
Here,
Yeah.
on the
Right.
bridge, yeah. I can barely see it from here.
Well, I guess I have a cut on my nose. So, here's my thing. Maybe. Hold on. Technical difficulties. You know how it is. Okay, as we enter upon the boy from the woods, he's sitting outside his grandmother's cottage, picking flowers, zinnias, dahlias, daisies, a thick scent of baked goods wafting from the white wooden window. And that's when he spots him, the small humanoid figure through branches of oak and elm. He approaches, closer and closer and closer, the figure still unmoving. As he moves under the shadowy canopy cast by emerald leaves, the figure can be seen in better clarity. A hooded man, standing at about 3 feet tall. Hunched over a mossy stone, the small man stays unmoving. The boy, being a hooligan by nature, readies his slingshot, pulls back, takes aim, the world around him quickly fading into a tunnel vision. He feels his fingers loosen their grip, and crack. Headshot. The figure whipped around, now revealing his ugly, misshapen face, green eyes, and wild, matted black hair. He raises a staff with his right hand. The whole forest lights up with a brilliant blue light. The boy was terrified, confused. He began to run, but the entirety of the world around him seemed to change and shift with every step he took. Trees were growing, rocks were rushing up to meet him. His legs then began to feel stiff, his whole body stiff. He couldn't bend them anymore. And from his stomach he felt protrusions. Something was growing from him. He looked down, and his clothes were gone, now replaced with black armor. No, a shell. Looking around, blades of grass were towering over him. Each pebble was the same size as the young boy, and he was hardly a boy anymore. Now that his pace slowed, he looked into a giant water droplet, revealing to him the horrid truth. He was no longer a boy. He was an insect. The insect child promptly lost consciousness. Awaking, he feels hundreds of slightly moving hands. Blades of grass that took the place of the trees were all passing overhead. Or rather, our boy was moving, being carried. Glancing down, he sees them. Hundreds of ants, black, wriggling insects. They were all marching in step, in rows and lines. Some carried bits of pastries, a group of them were hauling a half-rotten apple, and of course, a few were carrying him. He tried to move, but without his legs, all he could do was wriggle. He was terrified. They hauled him to the base of a huge tree. He didn't believe that these small creatures would be able to bring him up on their journey up the stump, but sure enough, the army of ants started to scale the tree with ease, all marching in step, left, right, past the base, passing the branches nearly at the top. The colony entered into a hole near the top, and around him, thousands of black wriggling insects exited from the hole to meet him. Not one out of step. They helped haul him into the tree, where confusing, dimly lit corridors of rotten oak made a labyrinth that only the ants could navigate. Some ants took the food away, but he still was being carried further into the chamber. Now it was only our poor boy. Finally, entering into a grand chamber, he was let go, rolling onto his 6 legs. He began to gather his bearings. The distant rumble of thousands of ants still marching in step chilled him. Then, looking up, in front of him sat the biggest bug he had ever seen. She was the Queen Ant. Truly a magnificent sight. She had a beautiful pattern on her shell that continued throughout her whole body. She was speaking, but he couldn't understand her. He knew she was curious, though. She seemed to cock her head, looking for some kind of response. He moved his mouth, but all that came out were clicks and cracks. She looked enraged. She screeched something in Antish, and the marching noise stopped. Suddenly, the pace picked up and started moving back in his direction. He scrambled away, skidding across the floor looking for an exit. He saw some light from the other end of the tree. The marching grew closer, so he picked up his pace even more. He was really getting the hang of moving around as a bug. The light grew closer, but so did the marching. Now, just moments away from escaping, he felt the brush of antennae on his behind. He made a final push, and he leaped into the light. The forest around him appeared, engulfing him in a welcome light, but he was still falling. The ants stopped, but before there could be one moment of peace, he saw rising from the ground a horde of black ants with wings, buzzing, whirring, and whizzing. Now even more scared, he had no choice but to fall to his fate, but just then he landed on a puffy substance. Opening his eyes, he saw two brightly colored wings flapping rapidly. He was on the back of a beautiful blue butterfly. Grabbing the back of this creature, he held on for dear life. They went up, up, and up, racing away from the ant swarm. The leaves of the canopy, now huge, were once again coming into focus. Through the thick emerald expanse of the foliage, he spotted an opening. He could hear the swarm behind them, and just then, emerging from the hole in the canopy, a canary swooped in. Now, with everyone's life on the line, the ants scattered, the butterfly and the boy started descending. A few ants started to fall, and the birds frantically chased them. The floor was coming up fast. A small creek was drowning out the sound of the dying bugs. The couple were spiraling down at top speeds, en route to smash into a stone by the creekside. They dodged a birdwing. They quickly moved out of the way of an open beak, trying to peck at them. The bird appeared in front of them. Now, with the bird slowed, the two had a chance to get away. The water grew near, the bird was falling, but all of a sudden, the butterfly collapsed. They hit the water with a plop, and the world went dark. He washed ashore alongside a pond the size of an ocean. Meeting this ant's eyes was a giant, bulbous green frog. Its chin expanded with a huge inhale. Having no time to catch his breath, the insect scrambled up and began to run. The frog bellowed its thunderous call and began to hop after its prey. Darting between blades of grass, under rocks, around twigs, over leaves, the ant was certainly not stopping for anything. The frog was following closely behind, taking leap after leap in the direction of his food, its eyes persistently trained on the bug. Our insect friend found a big rock to hide under, hopefully out of reach of the frog. He started wiggling his way into the crevice. He wasn't quite getting his whole body through, and the frog was only getting closer, closer. He pushed more, closer. He made one final push, and he was through. The amphibian let out a sigh of exasperation, and the boy was excited, if only for a moment. Right on cue, he noticed a long, writhing bug on the underside of the stone. It stretched, noticing the boy, and began to take chase too. Escaping the confines of the rock above and narrowly avoiding the maw of the centipede, the frog was outside, waiting for his return, and started the chase once more. With nowhere to go but further into the forest, the boy skittled across the floor, and being chased by the huge frog, the boy saw it. He could see the cottage in the distance, but he had to make it there first. The frog behind him hit the ground with a thump, and he sped off towards a home. While he was running away, he heard chirping, the same bird. It too wanted to join the fun, and from up ahead, he could feel the marching of hundreds of ants. They were all here. He was in the home stretch, but could he do it? He clambered over stones and twigs. He skidded through the mud with dirt all over them. He wished he could go back to before he shot the man who did this to him. He was sorry, so sorry. He made a promise to himself in that moment to never hurt anyone again. The bird and the frog and the ants all chased after him. He was ready to do anything to catch up. They were ready to do anything to catch him, but he was willing to do even more to make it home. When the frog landed in front of him, he took a chance, jumped on its back, and held on for dear life. The frog began to lose its mind. Eventually, gaining control of the creature, he started hopping towards home. The bird swooped past, nearly getting him, but he was too quick. He made it to the door, jumped off, and barely squeezed under the frame. He was home free. Footsteps came next. Our boy was still a bug, after all, so he tried to find somewhere to hide. He saw a newspaper on the floor, bolted to it, and he hid, listening to the steps getting closer and closer. It was his grandmother. She was searching for her glasses. The boy made sure not to make no noise as she got closer. Lifting it up, she gasped for air, saw him, a bug, so she promptly smashed it. The end.